The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Wednesday, the 26th day of March 2025. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. I'm Jamal Hartman, and Teo Dill will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in the news break brought to you by People's. Happy Hump Day, happy Wednesday, happy middle of the traditional work week. How is everyone feeling today? We are, well, some folks are almost there. You know, some people have shift work. Some people work weekends. Not everyone has a traditional 9 to 5, but for those who are at the middle of their week, congratulations to you. You've made it halfway. And may you use the power that got you to this point to get you through the rest. How's that? I hope you're feeling good. Greetings, everyone, and thanks for making this part of your daily routine. A good one today as we welcome the executive director and founder of SCARS, Debi Ray-Rivers on. We're going to be discussing SCARS awareness. We're happy about this new partnership. We'll speak to you more about. The daily plays music today. Yep, music. So I got to find a music-related question for you. Don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, we've got a lot to get through, but before we get to anything, I must ask, for the question of the day, and I'll get to the discussion, just be as honest as possible, folks. Be as honest as possible. It's okay. There's no wrong answer. Suzanne Ingham says, awesome Wednesday, Jamal, Teo, and Debi Ray-Rivers. Awesome Wednesday to you as well. All right, so this morning's discussion is brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure Trucking. Sorry.
The daily discussion is brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Visit TitanEXBDA.com, your leading tour and transport provider specializing in Black History tours throughout the island. And SecureBDA.com for all your property management, waste management, residential, and commercial trucking needs. Professional, punctual, and reliable service is our commitment to you.
Alrighty, here's your question of the morning. Here's the discussion question. Why do you believe Bermudians don't collectively fight or protest or stand up against what concerns them? Now, this is on the back of a story that Maya did yesterday. Maya did a story yesterday. It was focused around abortion in Bermuda. All right. She did a story around abortion in Bermuda. And in that story, she focused on some key areas where, like Bermudians Against the Draft and the like, as it relates to collectively fighting. Just a couple of days ago, people were on the internet, not complaining, but, sharing their concerns about another increase, the FAR adjustment at Belco. And someone was like, well, what are we going to do about it? And people were like, well, there was a protest and no one showed up and so on. And regardless, there are so many causes in Bermuda that we can get behind. I mean, we have someone on today, Debi Ray-Rivers, coming on about protecting our children. That's a cause, right? You have people who are fighting to protect the environment. That's a cause. We have people who are genuinely fighting for, the safety of our sons, fighting for education, fighting for healthcare. There's so many different causes in Bermuda to fight for. But unfortunately, collectively, we just don't seem to know how to work together and achieve anything. And it should be concerning to everyone. It should be very concerning to everyone. There was a time, and I mentioned it yesterday, there were always pressure groups, right? Politically, there were pressure groups. We spoke about how it wasn't really, as Maya mentioned in her report yesterday, it was not politicians who really got things done before. It was advocates and activists. But where are the advocates and activists today? Was the way to silence activism and advocacy to tie everyone to a mortgage? And if you tie everyone to a mortgage, they were less likely to fight. Think about this, folks. Think about it. If you tie people to mortgages, they're less likely to fight because they don't want to lose their house. Was that a part of a grand scheme? Is it, let's create DEI and give people positions and promote them in these organizations and pay them a good salary so that they're less likely to fight? I was once told, I'm not sure how true this is, I was once told, as it relates to conscription in the Bermuda Regiment, that one of the reasons that conscription worked back in the day, the idea, and black soldiers, none the wiser, was if you could take them off the streets, you had less people you had to worry about rioting, right? So I was watching this video yesterday, and I think it was the U.S. Marshals or FBI. It happened back in the 80s. Correct me if I'm wrong, audience. But they called about 100 people and promised them NFL tickets to an NFL game. And they told them to meet at this hotel. And when they met at the hotel, the marshals and FBI rushed in and arrested over 100 people for warrants for NFL tickets. Yeah. Why do I mention that? I think we have a soft spot. We have a soft spot as a people. And that soft spot is we prioritize things that those who came before us fought for us to have. You wouldn't have the fancy job title. You wouldn't have the mortgage if it were not for those who came before you to fight for the very causes that you don't want to risk losing. Question of the morning this morning, folks. Again, it is, why do you believe Bermudians don't collectively fight or protest or stand up against what concerns them? Why do you think it is? Like, what do you think is the kicker with this? Nicole Hassel says, fear of being judged and or criticized. Most people will silently agree with a protester, but won't join in the fight for what's right. Nicole, I'm going to go on the amount of people when we were fighting conscription. I would be walking the street and people, hey man, look, I admire what you guys are doing, man. Yeah, I can't do it though. I've got this job. Like literally grown men would say that. I even had a former friend of mine say, no, man, I agree with what you guys are doing, but you don't want to mess up your reputation and this and that. And I just thought, wow, those who came before us, who fought, who risked their lives, their livelihood, their homes, their families, my God, what they left us such a selfish generation. What do you believe Bermudians Like, why do you believe Bermudians don't stand up collectively together? Like, why don't we do it? Why don't we protest? Why will we complain over the coffee station or around the water cooler or at the family function, but we won't do much more than that? Like, why can't we find it within us to collectively go against the grain? Kenton Trott says one reason is because when you stand up, you risk being blackballed, labeled, and have issues. They can't blackball everyone, though. I mean, they can, but who loses at that point? That's why the key term is collectively. Collectively. There was a time, and I know times change, but that's not always for the better. Like, I've had someone in my circle say, well, we no longer need a fight like our parents and grandparents. They did the work. I was like, man, is that what they taught you at that school? Can you imagine? I don't know, folks. That's not the mindset that I think is helpful. I mean, we've got, Belko around here. Everyone's got a complaint, but no one does a thing. And then when they say, oh, we're going to do something for the community, give out some bags of candy or something, we're all going to jump. Oh, they're so great. When they turn our lights back on and so on, they're so great. That's their job. So, like, what is it? Like, what do we need to do? I'm going to use, since we're speaking about scars awareness today. We don't even stand up for our children. You know, I saw someone write on social media last year sometime that we protect our relatives who are even guilty of doing stuff to children. Like, what? That's something collectively we should be stumping out of our society. So again, the question is, why do you believe Bermudians don't collectively fight, protest, or stand up against what concerns them? And here's a better question, and I'm fine if you haven't. Have you taken a stand for a major cause before? Have you taken a stand for a major cause before? Have you done so? Question of the morning again, why do you believe we don't stand up collectively together? Hedeline Swan says, fear of being negativity listed. I don't know what, I mean, again, if all of us collectively, keyword collective, if all of us did it, then we're all negative, right? Charles H. Jefferson II, he says, I believe one of the reasons people don't fight is because many don't believe that their protests will result in any meaningful change. Also, they would be ostracized for going against the grain. Here's the thing. That may be for one person. But again, I'm going to keep saying the word collectively. Collectively. If we all done like our part, if we all did our part, it's pretty hard for them to ostracize. I mean, they would have to divide and conquer. And divide and conquer works right now, which is why we don't collectively fight. Antoine Darrell says, because not everyone feels they are all in the same cage. But Antoine, we're talking about people who are complaining. Let's use Belko, for instance. We may not be in the same cage, but if everyone's complaining about the same thing, why aren't we turning those complaints into a collective voice and collective action? That's the point. We're speaking about people who feel like they're in the same cage. If I took 100 of the comments I've seen on social media since Sunday about Belko, and we took those 100 people, I'm sure there's 100. They can find 100 more each who have the same issue. That's collective. Collective doesn't mean every last person. Collective means a group of people who share the same concerns and understand that together they can actually accomplish something. Why don't we do that? Why are some people in the collective, oh, no, Charles has got that, or Antoine's got that? Why are we so comfortable watching other people fight our battles? Keep it coming, audience. It's the daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure Trucking. Again, question of the morning: why do you believe Bermudians don't collectively fight, protest, or stand up against what concerns them? What concerns them? Kenton Trott says, I totally agree with you, Jamal. If we do something collectively, we will see progress. I'm going to say this, and y'all may not like this. The PLP, the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party, the political entity, literally taught Bermudians how to collectively fight. They taught it to you. Now, they've moved on from collectively fighting to knowing how to collectively win elections. It's almost like when the PLP becomes government, Bermudians don't know how to fight. And this is not about fighting against the government. Belco is not government. Children are not government. You feel me? So maybe we need to find some people with some PLP pedigree, well, the PLP of old, pedigree, to teach Bermudians how to collectively fight and stand up. Because, I mean, the late Stuart Haywood was great at it with the environmentalists. He was very good. Like him or not, Reverend Tweed and Jason Haywood and Chris Verbert, the People's Campaign, great at it. And as many people want to sit back and complain about Reverend Tweed and Chris Verbert and Jason Haywood, you can complain about them, but they're probably everything you should want to be when you're still talking about standing up and fighting. That's the reality. They put themselves out there. I mean, they had end goals. I mean, Reverend Tweed, once the PLP got in, work permit thing. Jason Haywood, a minister, a senator, and then a minister. But I mean, they got something out of it. I don't know if it was what they wanted, but they got something. If we want better options for utilities, then going on social media ain't really, maybe, you know what? That's a good, I just thought, maybe social media has taken away our collective will to fight. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Let's go over to Instagram. Mia Shambray said, I think people are working a million jobs and don't have the energy to make noise. It's not about making noise. It's about being active. And to that point, people were always working multiple jobs in certain communities in Bermuda. She goes on to say, also think that people don't know how to fight. Again, the PLP gave you a playbook. Not even then, the People's Campaign, they showed you how to do it. Said the most recent collective fighting I've seen was the West End Warriors. That was something to behold. Absolutely. And my apologies. That's a perfect example. The West End Warriors. How could I forget? They, PLP pedigree. They showed you how to fight for something. They won. And no disrespect to the West End Warriors, but based on pictures, those were some veterans, not older people, but they were veterans in the collective fights that Bermudians have fought. Thank you for that, because I that's very rude of me not to remember them. All right, let's go back to the comments. Audience, again, why do you believe Bermudians don't collectively fight, protest, or stand up against what concerns them? Kenton Trott says, I already read that one. Jonathan says, 20% of the working population work for government. It's unlikely they will protest against their employer. Well, Lauren Francis did, but she resigned, right? But that's a very good point, Jonathan. Charles H. Jeffs II says, as a people, we have a short attention span, and those we protest against know that and wait us out. Oh, absolutely. There's an attitude within, like, spaces that, oh, they'll get over it. Oh, the Bermudians don't stick to nothing. Oh, they'll be okay. Yeah, that's definitely true. Kenton Trott says, I take stands for causes regularly, but I am limited due to the law and my chosen current career. Indeed. Anthony Richardson said it's a circular argument with a circular answer. Until a sizable number protest as a collective, people stand on the side. West End Warriors. Michael Diamond says we are a country of followers. No one wants to take the lead, it seems, right? Renee Simmons says the same reason there are policies in the workplace against employees entering the political arena. Fair. Bermuda is very easily managed against protesters. Freedom of will is not always possible. So as I said earlier in the show, basically the way to control people, and it's almost, let's look at the United States. And I was going to wait till Teo came in because I think he was going to, I know Teo's mind. I'm not saying I read it because the man's just all over there. His brain's just really huge. But I wanted to wait till he came on and talk about this. But let's use what's going on in the United States right now. There are people who are fair speaking out and standing up because they may be deported or the like, right? A form of fear that's struck in them. Do Bermudians feel that kind of fear? Like if they speak out, like that kind of stuff's going to happen? Not obviously deportation, but like losing jobs and losing, because if that's the case, that's even more reason we need to collectively stand together. Ellen Kate Horton says, perhaps the utility issue doesn't really concern us that much. Okay. Charles H. Jefferson II says another example would be the fishermen. They won. All right, folks, let's bring in Teo Dill for the Daily Hour News break. After that, we have Debi Ray-Rivers Scars Awareness coming up. This was your daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure Trucking.
The daily discussion is brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Visit TitanEXBDA.com, your leading tour and transport provider specializing in Black History tours throughout the island. And SecureBDA.com for all your property management, waste management, residential, and commercial trucking needs. Professional, punctual, and reliable service is our commitment to you.
All right, let's bring Teo Dill in for the Daily Hour News break. Folks, do us a favor before we do that. Make sure you, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, the Tube, Instagram, Twitter X, give us a like, love, follow, share. Make sure you share this conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. We have a very important conversation coming up, and you don't want to miss it. All right?
Morning, Jay. Morning, fam. How you doing? I have one very short question. Why did you call YouTube the Tube?
Because I say Facebook's the book.
See, you take good care of yourself, Jay. You drink a lot of water. You're well hydrated. You go to the gym. So at a glance, you look like a much younger man than you are. But when you say stuff like,
are you calling me old?
I'm just saying, if you say stuff like the Tube and the book, like you're kind of giving away that you were born in the 80s at the beginning of it.
You know what? Old man to old man, I'm okay with that.
Congratulations. That's the healthiest possible response you could have given.
I'm okay with that, you know? Mm-hmm. But Tay, come on, man. Get in this conversation because you saw the headline in the RG, I'm sure, about a Bermudian on green card, fearing getting deported for speaking out. And then Maya literally had her story yesterday, like about people speaking up, standing up. I mean, you know the amount of people used to call your radio show, and like it's a thing. But I mean,
I think that you basically underlined the central point at the end of the discussion this morning, the segment. That is to say, social media has broken our brains in like a really fundamental way that's very difficult to fix. That is to say, to be a public figure, activist, community leader in years gone by, you had to spend years of consistent, deliberate effort to build an audience, to build a reputation that would like earn that audience, that space in the public dialogue. Now you can be like nationally known if you have like decent makeup or like kind of muscly and like a decent camera and a poppin' Instagram account, right? Like you have no credibility beyond the fact that you got a platform that people can follow just by using their thumbs for a couple of seconds. And the consequence of that is that it's that much more difficult to build sustainable, meaningful, effective change movements, right? Because everybody at bottom, I think, thinks that they could really change things. And on paper, yeah, you can with how social media works. But just because everybody has access to a platform does not mean that they deserve it and can use it effectively. And that's what we see, right? Everybody complaining, everybody fussing, everybody knows this, but nothing changes. Like why? Yeah. Like the two things don't seem to, like they seem to, they're mutually exclusive. And I think it's because we just don't understand what real activism is anymore. Like it takes time, man. It takes effort.
And I'm not trying to throw mud on young people. I'm not trying to throw mud on older people who get on social media. But I think social media works. It's effective for many things. But I think the point is, and I have to quote this. Miss Ellen Kate Horton says, "Jamel, I agree that we, the West End Warriors, were led by veterans. When you believe in something strongly enough, we will stand. That is when I first met Canton Trot Smile." But I think that last part's important, even though she said smile, because she met someone in person. This was a lot of work that was done in person. This wasn't like with Bermudans Against the Draft. Yeah, we had the radio, but a lot of our work was done in the courtroom. It was done on the streets, talking to people. It was literally us getting out, going, sit in the House of Assembly. I mean, it didn't work, us going in the House of Assembly trying to intimidate people. But, we went there. Like, they saw that we were real people, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to crap on modern activism, but it seems to me, and again, I don't want to come across it, but it seems more about popularity than effectiveness.
Well, what I think the key is that the West End Warriors and with Bermudians Against the Draft, that core nucleus of people that drove those projects had authentic, lasting, trust-based relationships. Right? Like it wasn't just that you agreed about something, like you knew that you could trust one another to see this thing through all the way to the end. And for better or for worse, like the activism that takes place nowadays, quote unquote, like it's not based on those or driven by people with those kinds of relationships. Like the organizations that are really moving stuff here on the island now, like Bermuda is Love, like I'm so embarrassed. The one. Yeah, exactly. Like those young people are friends, right? They know each other. They know their value set. They've been through stuff with them, and they're able to rely on each other and keep these things moving. Just posting and people hitting like, that don't mean they really support you. Correct. That just means that thing you said they thought was kind of cool. You don't have a real actionable consensus. And that's what's missing. Like people think the consensus is a post with a couple thousand likes. Like, no.
I had this old thing I said to someone. I said, you can put a post up with a pretty dress or a bathing suit and get 700,000 likes. Now go put a shirt up and say selling for $2 and see how many people buy that shirt. That's how you know whether you're effective or not.
Right. Like there's ways to test it, and most of this stuff fails the test. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm sad about this, but it's like reality bears this out to be true. Now, as far as other sad things, the reality is bearing out to be true. Another officer from the Bermuda Police Service has been dismissed for misconduct just weeks after a similar dismissal. Now, a BPS spokesperson explained that this most recent firing was due to the officer breaching the standards of professional behavior. The officer was given legitimate access to the funds of a vulnerable person and was found to have misused some of them for personal gain. And it's important to note that the matter had nothing to do with her role as a member of the Bermuda Police Service. Now, this follows last week's dismissal of another constable being let go for another instance of gross misconduct. Interestingly, in this prior instance, we didn't get any detail as to what specific action led to his being removed from the service beyond the original statement, ending with the following quote, "Having regard for privacy matters, no further comment will be provided." All this follows on from the suspension of 7 officers last July, 4 for criminal allegations and 3 for gross misconduct. Now, this is the thing that I was really spending time on this morning, trying to contextualize this for you. 2 officers being dismissed by March of this year equals about 0.5% of the 468 officer deep local police service. If this trend continues, it could end up making the BPS look pretty comparatively shaky to when compared with other police services around the world. Now, this is the headline from a BBC story last November explaining that last year saw a pretty significant spike in the dismissal of police officers across England and Wales, with the number jumping from about 200 to almost 600 within the 12-month reporting period. The number one reason they were kicked off the force was dishonesty. Number two, sexual offenses, followed by discrimination. Notably, nearly 20 officers were fired for having inappropriate images of children, which is horrifying. Now, all that said, here's the thing. The 593 officers fired in Britain is less than 0.5% of the overall service. We here in Bermuda have already hit that proportionate number of dismissals this year, and it's only March. So if we keep moving at this pace, we could end up legitimately at the end of the year having 5-6 times as many officers being let go for misconduct than they do in the United Kingdom, which is kind of horrifying.
And audience, let me know. I'm interested in how you feel about this, but I don't know how to feel about it, because in one breath, I'm like, okay, the Bermuda Police Service is cleaning itself up. Like they're trying.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But in another breath, I'm like, how did we get here? And how are we going to avoid more of this happening? Like, it's like you want to. Charles H. Jefferson II says it right here. Like, I applaud the BPS for cleaning up the service despite challenges with attracting new officers. Quality over quantity is always best. But this should still concern us, because how many officers are left who have questionable ethics or integrity?
Right. That's an impossible question to answer, I think. But it's an essential one. You know what I mean? Like, it's impossible not to think about this in this way. But we'll keep you posted as hopefully we don't have to keep you posted about future dismissals, but one way or the other, we'll let you know. Now, in other news, well done to the government for committing to continue the land grab commission of this year's throne speech. This from Citizens Uprooting Racism in Bermuda, aka CURB, in a statement responding to the 2025 throne speech, saying this reflects government's commitment to advancing restorative justice principles that can build a more just, equitable, and responsive society. The statement specifically reads, quote, addressing historical land injustices is vital to Bermuda's pursuit of racial and economic justice. Now, we all know that there's been many instances of this kind of activity in Bermuda's history, like land seized by the state or commercial interests without appropriate compensation to the original owners. Now, I don't know if you know about this, Jay. A few years ago, the Bermuda Broadcasting Company did a fantastic long-form piece on one instance of this kind of thing. That is to say, how the former U.S. base was acquired up in the East End. Despite the Americans originally preferring the Great Sound as where the base should be, local officials decided that it should be pushed into a part of the island that just wasn't important enough to avoid being inconvenienced in such a significant way. And inconvenienced is in no way sufficient a word to describe what happened. And they pushed it out to St. David's. Here is a small excerpt from this excellent BBC piece. Just check it out.
So they pushed it onto St. David's, who they described as backward, and they were uneducated. They were probably not able to resist.
As a proud royalist, Tommy Fox willingly sold off over 30 acres of his land on Annie's Bay for Crown and Country at a fraction of its value. And because of his persona and stellar reputation, Tommy Fox easily convinced many other families to follow suit. Consequently, hundreds were displaced, and virtually half of St. David's was now controlled by the Americans and no longer accessible to those who had made it their home for generations.
Give St. David's people, man, give them back their land after all this.
Right? Like, I'm so embarrassed.
Like that really bothered me.
Well, no, it makes you angry for all the right reasons. And what what I'm struggling with is, like, I don't know him, but I'm familiar with the legend of Tommy Fox, right? Like, he's one of them ones from that part of the island in particular. And, you know, learning that he's a big part of why his community that he had, you know, done a lot to support and care for and help progress. The fact they went along with this, like I know he did it in good faith, but I don't know if it was the best call, but then again, I mean, you know, having the base here, was it in the national interest for so long? It'd be hard to argue that it wasn't. But it's complicated, right? Yeah, man. So
I guarantee a lot of people didn't know that story though, and I'm glad you shared that. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No, shout out to BBC. You can find it on their YouTube page. Now, here's something else you probably don't know. It's shamefully, this kind of thing is still happening this century, not in the type of small developing countries that you might think. I mean, the most powerful country on the planet is still going through this. Here's an example of how U.S. citizens are still being straight up stolen from by unjust land seizures. And before we get into it, I want to have you think about whether or not you're going to be surprised by what the participants look like.
It would make you mad if somebody takes something from you.
Margaret Jennings says she still doesn't understand how she lost her family's land to a con artist.
I just don't understand how he could go downtown and get the deeds.
He is Norris Fisher. Postal inspectors say he stole properties by using phony documents, forged deeds and contracts with fake notary signatures.
He would file deed after deed on the property using fraudulent notary stamps that he had made up. He would then often take out the mineral rights and separate that from the actual property. In many cases, those properties would be sold to different people, even though he never even owned them.
Man, I just wonder, percentage-wise, how many people actually get away with this stuff? Because to attempt it to be so arrogant to think you will just is nuts to me.
And the thing that is particularly frightening to me is the fact that the methods are so consistent. Like if you spend any time listening to the land grab commission hearings here a few years ago, like using the deeds and notarized and filing them, but like it's the same sort of process. Right. And that would have been from over 100 years ago here in Bermuda. And this fella's doing this like within this decade. To somebody, but always exploiting vulnerable people that may be resource land rich, but that's all they got, and just taking it from them because they figure, you know, why not? I could use it more than they can use it. It's horrifying. Now, in much more uplifting news, shout out and well done to students island-wide, the Department of Education, and the Bermuda Society of the Arts for putting together the 60th annual primary school art exhibition. It all launched last week at the BSOA Gallery in City Hall under the theme Expressions from Our Hearts. That's HE_ARTS. It features student artwork from all 17 public primary schools, 6 private schools, and an alternative government school. Education Minister Senator Crystal Caesar celebrated the event, saying something that is not emphasized often enough. That is, quote, art is far more than just part of a curriculum. It's an essential part of a child's educational journey. It is the cornerstone of a well-rounded education, shaping confident and creative individuals ready to navigate an ever-evolving world. The free exhibition is running till April 7th at the BSOA, the People's Gallery. Check it out. I'm excited. I love.
Nice.
I don't know if you've been to any of these things over the years, Jay. It's so nice. Like you go in, you see what the kids are feeling, you see what they're thinking, and you see how extraordinary they are at visual art, and you just leave feeling reassured. Like all right, like they're good, you know. Weather-wise, we should be getting some rain and gusty wind over the next 48 hours due to the presence of a cold front in our airspace. The most noteworthy part of the forecast, though, is that the air temps are going to bottom out in the high 50s again. So you might need to turn your heater on a couple more times this year, at least. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just kind of what it is.
All righty. Thank you so much for that, Teo. Tay, it's World Math Day, and it's also Make Up Your Own Holiday Day. So, folks, I got to ask you, were you a math person in school? Did you like anything to do with math? Tell you, I just remember when we used to pack groceries and people would come up to you and they'd be like, hey, because they knew Teo was like this Viz kid, right? They thought he was like, oh, the most intelligent person. So they would come out, be honest, they come out and you can see the annoyance. Teo would be reading a comic book at work, right? And somebody say, hey, Teo, what's 20 times 20? Am I lying?
No, you're telling the truth. It was super frustrating. Like I felt like I don't know if you ever seen like a performing monkey or something, like with organ grinder or whatever. And like the monkey's sitting in the cage, like smoking a cigarette, looking depressed, and then the music starts playing. It's like, I forget you. Like it really felt like that. I hated it.
But I mean, can I ask now? Like, was math your favorite subject, since people usually always come up with a math question for you?
No. English has always been my thing because math is much too rigid for me, which is to say, like, there's a right answer and a wrong answer. Whereas with English, you can negotiate, you can debate, you can offer insight, interpretation, and it's so much more freeing, I think. Like math is wonderful because it's clear, but English was always my thing.
English is what got me through graduate school. It was, math is so like, that's the answer. English, I could talk my way into a good grade.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Exactly.
Say we've got a very special guest who's patiently waiting. So I'm not gonna give you a joke today. I know.
Oh, thank God. Oh, I'm sorry. That was a bit much. I apologize.
Mike, have a wonderful day, Taylor. My goodness. Tell us how he really feels. See you on Friday.
Take care, man. I see you.
Taylor Dill, folks. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in 3 minutes and 17 seconds, and we'll be back with Debi Ray-Rivers. We're having a very important conversation about scars. In the meantime, audience, make sure you give us a love, like, follow, share the link with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and get your questions ready for anything scars related. This is a very important community conversation. Stick with us.
People's ACW, located at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, carries over-the-counter medicines, toys, cards, and even toiletries. Our knowledgeable staff are there whether you're at emergency, visiting family, or a member of BHB staff, to show you our best even when you're feeling your worst. People's ACW, we're here for you.
Hi there, welcome to Medical House. We're located at number 6 Bakery Lane. I can't wait to show you all of the great stuff that we carry. Come on inside, let's see. Long days, long shifts, you no longer have to endure comfortable underwear. Designed by nurses, we now offer premium undergarments by Swoop that are unique, fun, comfortable, and functional. The only underwear you'll ever want to wear. Who says high quality functional products can't be stylish and comfortable at the same time?
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
Discover Drop It, your go-to grocery delivery. Browse and select from a wide range of groceries, from fresh produce to daily essentials. Our friendly drivers deliver fresh groceries to your door fast, saving you time and hassle. With Drop It, you get fresh groceries delivered fast so you can focus on what really matters. Drop It, freshness at your doorstep, delivered to your door with Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
Unlock your business potential with BDC's General Microloan, offering up to $30,000 for Bermudian small and medium businesses. Whether it's for inventory, working capital, or equipment, we provide 100% guarantee on approved loans. Simple application, low interest rates, and fast processing. Apply today and make your business dream come true.
Parents, please take an interest in your child's online activity. It's not prying, it's protecting. We encourage you to do your research on what apps your child is using because it is important to keep them protected. Use privacy settings for your little ones and develop open and honest conversations around cyber safety with your teens. This helps prevent online interaction with digital predators. These predators exist, and they are experts on grooming children online. So arm yourself with the knowledge and tools to safeguard your child. Visit scarsbermuda.com to learn more.
Bermuda heat is no joke. Is your AC ready for summer? A quick tune-up now can keep you cool, save energy, and prevent costly breakdowns later. Call 2920881 or book your service online at bac.bm.
Join us as we celebrate 5 years and 1,000 plus episodes of community conversations on Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. The Daily Hour Gala takes place on April 26th at LF Wade International Airport. For more information and advance tickets, please send an email to admin@bermudacommunications.com. We look forward to celebrating all that's great about our community with all of you.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. Jamal Hartman here. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. Don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, without further ado, let's bring in a very special guest today. Just want to let everyone know. So we're going to be doing some regular conversations with SCARS in a way to engage our community, to help our community to better serve our children, to better protect our children. And these conversations are probably brought to you by the QBE Foundation. So let's give a warm TDH welcome to very special guest, Debi Ray-Rivers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Jamal. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me and SCARS to talk about the vital importance of making sure the children of Bermuda are protected from sexual.
Of course. Thank you for doing this. So before we even get into the importance of what we're discussing today, I've got to ask you, were you a math person in school?
Absolutely not.
Okay, we're aligned. We're aligned. No disrespect to the math whizzes. I appreciate you. I value you. I love you. But I just, numbers and I just were not aligned. So we're in the same boat.
Yeah, we sure are. No, I was definitely not good at math. I wasn't good at many things, actually. Maybe English and psychology, but that's about it.
Yeah. And you know what? It just goes to show we're not going to be good at everything, but what we do focus on and where we lend our heart to, we can definitely make a difference. And that you have. And before we get into the conversation, Kenton Trott says SCARS is one of the organizations that is doing the real work to protect our children. Good morning, Debbie, says Kenton. But let's just go back because you've been on the show before, but just for if this is someone's first time tuning in, let's just go back a bit. And Debbie, just share your story about where the idea came to create SCARS when you did.
Yeah, thank you. The idea came from pain, actually. My family was affected by this issue of child sexual abuse back in 2004. My girls were sexually molested they were 9 and 10 when a 78-year-old man used their little bodies to gain sexual pleasure. As a family member, a very trusted, close family member. And so that's where it all began. There were, the country was not where it is today. There was, there's a lot of shame around child sexual abuse. And so it was a very silent issue. People would use terms like, stay away from him because he interferes with children instead of sexually abused children. We were kind of, not glossing it over, but not really calling it what it is and calling people out for what they did to children. There were, we have a lot of survivors in our country and people were sharing their story with me, but it was just super taboo. It's not that we've changed that, the shame around it, that we still have a stigma around child sexual abuse, but I think we've come a long way. But my family was affected. It was shocking for me. There were things that I also didn't do as a parent. I didn't have enough conversations with my children about body safety and boundaries and consent. I didn't speak to the adults in my life to say, hey, listen, I'm educated in prevention. Never let me find out you've ever done anything sexual to my children. I wish I would have said that at a Sunday dinner. I had done I had taken part in some education and I know now about this topic. I didn't put him on notice because I had no idea that this person was doing this to my children. We trust family members. We trust the adults in our children's life and we assume that our children are going to be safe. Well, my kids were not safe. And it rocked our family. He was also a very, he carried a Bible. So he was a devout church member. So that was also a huge shock for us. Like, that's when we realize even people in our life who we know and trust can harm children, people that are related to us, people that claim to be Christians. and know anything about a Bible, because they don't, in my personal view. And so it just rocked our family, Jamel. It rocked my world as a mom. It was the worst day of my life to discover that this had happened. And that's kind of started this whole thing. There was a lot of denial, a lot of minimization, wanting me to keep it quiet, just take care of my kids and move on. And I knew that doesn't change things. Like we have to advocate for change, because I knew in my heart that it was just wrong. And there were a lot of things that happened back in 2004 and 2005 and 2006 that I knew needed to change. And I was determined to, first of all, get educated in what I could have done to prevent it. Well, and to make change.
Yeah, and speaking of that, and Debbie, again, this almost goes back to our story this morning. This is not to shame anyone. This is not to shame anyone, what I'm saying, but you just mentioned that people probably wanted you to stay quiet, not go, and had you remained quiet and just kept it within your family, we wouldn't have what we have today. And one of the biggest things that I hear people speaking about is the education that SCARS is providing. So how have you utilized this organization to go about educating the community on how to better protect children?
Yeah. So what you have to do is just change attitudes and behaviors. So a year before I started SCARS, I found this educational curriculum that was developed in the United States by an organization called the Darkness to Light organization. And they provide curriculums around prevention, because in order to stop something, you got to educate people. Because I could have gone and protested all I wanted, but nobody was going to listen to me. I was unknown. What did I know? I was just a very upset, angry, and determined mom. But in order to change attitudes and behaviors, prevention education is what worked. And so the first thing I did was find this educational curriculum, and then brought it back to Bermuda. And together with John Brunson, who is a past chairman of SCARS, we hit the road running, and we became a charity in 2011. And we started educating our community in May 2012. And we could see, I don't know if you've ever heard of this theory, I'm sure you have, Jamel, called the tipping point theory, where if you can affect 5% of a given population on a certain behavior or societal problem, you can start changing behaviors around that. And that tipping point, which I think was developed by Gladwell, I've forgotten his name, sorry. Anyway, it'll come to me. The theory is if you can affect 5% of a given population on a certain societal issue, you can start changing behaviors and attitudes. And we saw that. Once we trained 5% of our adult population, we started seeing things change. The more and more people that came into our room to be educated on prevention, what they can do to reduce the risk of kids being sexually harmed, started to change, where more and more people were getting trained. Organizations were mandating the people who serve their children to be provided with this education so that they can start recognizing some signs. We didn't understand this issue. So we didn't have the knowledge to know what are some signs that might indicate a child's being harmed. Yeah. What are those signs? And a change of behavior? Are they angry? Are they in drugs? Are they depressed? Or do they suddenly don't want to be around this relative anymore? There were signs that I wish I would have picked up on, because one of my daughters was abused for 4 years at his hands. If I would have been educated in prevention, I know I would have picked up some of those signs.
So what can like a parent or guardian, parents right now, just using some of the language that was used from comments earlier, is people are working so many jobs. They have their children in so many different activities. They may not even think that something again, no one wants to think this. They don't know what's going on, but what can they do? Like the busy guardian parent do to better protect their children in those instances?
Okay. Let me just, while it came to me, Malcolm Gladwell is the guy who.
Yes. I
wanted to say that. So the first thing that I would say to parents, and yes, parents are busy, get educated in prevention. Sign up for a SCARS training. It's 3 hours and it's free, thanks to our donors and our community and corporate donors. They provide the funds to SCARS. We provide the funds to Darkness to Light to pay for every participant that comes in our room. So it's free education. Get educated on what you can do to recognize the signs, learn the facts about it, how to talk to your children about this issue, and how to minimize the opportunity for this to happen, what questions you need to ask organizations before you just drop your child off to a school, to a camp, to a club, to a faith-based center. Ask some questions of that organization. Listen, our children are our treasures, and we as parents and guardians and caregivers have every right to ask organizations some questions. We don't know everybody working in these organizations. Perpetrators want to be where there are children. So the organizations who open their doors to children, they have an obligation to make sure they're doing everything they can to protect the children that they're responsible for. And guess what? Organizations in Bermuda are doing that. We have more and more youth serving organizations coming into our rooms. So the parents, I believe, also, obviously have been putting some pressure on these organizations to say, what prevention education do you offer? What does your social media policy look like? What happens if my child reports to you that they've been abused? What are you doing? What are your transportation? You got to take my kid home. What does that look like? And to keep my child safe. Parents have a right to do that. But prevention also begins at home, Jamal. So it's our duty as parents to talk to our kids about body safety, about boundaries, and do that in an age-appropriate, child-friendly way. It does start at home. And, sex was such a uncomfortable word, years ago, Jamal, like, a penis wasn't called a penis. It was called your boy, your Willie, your Johnson. We give it a different name. We don't have another. I always say we don't have another name for our nose. We got to the private part, so we created this shame-based knowledge of parts of the body that are very special, but also very private. So we want our, but not just a one-time conversation. We want our parents and guardians to start early talking to their children about this and talk often. So parents, busy parents, first start with getting yourself educated. 3 hours out of your life to hear about a very important topic on child safety, to keep your child safe. The best protection is you as a parent, but I know you're busy. Keep those conversations open. Let your child know that they can tell you anything about anyone that makes them feel uncomfortable, even if it's Uncle Johnny, even if it's you as a parent or a guardian that might cross their space of something that makes them feel uncomfortable. We should be okay with that. Let our children know. Let me know. Your body belongs to you.
It's interesting because I actually said to my niece during the holidays, I said, I had a chat with her about it because, at a school, there was something that happened with a teacher that was in the news. I said, if anything happens, you let your mommy know. I didn't say let uncle know. I said, you tell your mother everything. She said, okay. But I say that because of what you just said. I think one of the things that I've read in the news is I think people fail to realize, and I think you may have said it before on something I've seen, is that a lot of it is from people close to you, right? And so the way children are raised is, we're not supposed to. And that's why I like the parenting, this new thing of parenting is not forcing children to hug someone or even speak to someone, right? I don't before it was like, oh no, that's your uncle, go hug, give him a hug. And so, no. So even things like that I've noticed have changed, which I think is part of the education that SCARS is doing. Because you've done and I'm not saying this just because you're here, but you've done a wonderful job in making sure, like I hear people say, oh, well, are they SCARS trained? Like people, whether it's coaching, certain organizations, I give you that. It's a lot. But I want to go to the audience because we do have quite a few questions. They love you, Debbie. What can I say? We've got Charles H. Jeffs II. He says, other signs or things that we should look out for to prevent this from happening. How do we approach someone who we think are doing inappropriate things with children? Interesting. Approaching that person. Or do you go to the law first? Like, how do you do that?
Well, first of all, I would totally intervene in that behavior, because if I would have known what I know now, I would have said, no, my daughter doesn't want to go over there this morning. No, my daughter doesn't want to sit on your lap. Why are you putting my daughter in the front seat and you're putting your wife in the back seat? I would have been able to speak up, because the one thing about a perpetrator, they don't want to get caught. And confronting is okay. you have to be bold and intervene in any behavior that is making your child feel uncomfortable. Now, if it's actual sexual abuse, it has to be reported. We're all mandated reporters, so we must report it. And we must remember that when we make a report about somebody who's done something to our child sexually, we are not making an accusation. We're asking for an investigation to take place. And we have fine agencies doing that investigation. The Department of Child and Family Services, the Bermuda Police Service. And then once they determine that they feel a crime has occurred, then it goes up to the Department of Public Prosecution. So we have 3 fine services determining whether a crime has occurred. And the problem with this issue, though, with child sexual abuse, is sex offenders don't do this in front of other people. There's going to be no evidence. There's going to be, unless it's social media, and then you have something to show, but there's going to be, they're going to do it behind closed doors. And so, it's hard to prove these cases. But mommies and daddies and guardians and caregivers, be that mommy, dad, or daddy bear for your child. You intervene and you let that person know, no matter who that relationship is with. Excuse me, my daughter's saying she doesn't want to hug, or my son doesn't want to sit on your lap, or he's told you 3 times to stop tickling him. Can you please stop tickling? Like, we as parents and caregivers can be the voice for our children, because that's our responsibility. To prevent it, we need to look out for a child's, behavior. We have to, I'd say the first thing in prevention is having a conversation with your child in an age-appropriate way about what they need to do to take care of their bodies. Their bodies are special and private. They don't let anybody touch, view, or take pictures of their private parts, and they don't do that to others. Very important. It goes both ways, right? We respect our spaces, and teach them the difference between a secret and a surprise. Perpetrators, I can't tell you how many stories I've heard, Jamel, of survivors, adult survivors, who said the person told them, keep the secret. It's our secret. Or if you tell, I'm going to kill your mommy. Or if you tell, I'm going to hurt your sister. Or if you tell, you're not going to get on the team. Or if you tell, you're going to have to go. One story I heard, if you tell, your mommy's going to be taken back, you're going to have to move back to Portugal. Your dad's going to lose his job. Or if you tell, he's not going to pay for your boarding school fees anymore. Or if you tell, he's going to have to go to jail. They put this onus on the children. And we as adults,
a heavy burden for a child to carry.
Oh, can you imagine this little child feeling it's like my fault if I tell? I'm going to get in trouble. And many times children don't want people that they actually care about to go to jail. These are perpetrators. They've groomed these children. They've groomed these families. They know what to say to these people. They want to be the best at what they are, because they don't want anybody to suspect what they're doing behind closed doors.
Right. Let's go back to the audience. We've got quite a few questions. Manuela John, she's asking, did the Me Too movement bring attention to child abuse, which had previously gone unreported?
I would say no to that, because Me Too was more about adults, and we just stayed focused, even though it was such an amazing movement. And I'm glad that came out. But, I just focused on child sexual abuse, because the children don't have the voice, and we need to interrupt that behavior. The other thing that I would say is also helping children find that voice. Perpetrators will target children who have low self-esteem, maybe the child that's shy, maybe the child that doesn't have confidence, self-confidence, maybe the child that nobody's taken care of, nobody's watched, their family's in a vulnerable position. And so what we're trying to do is find the voice for children. That's what SCAR's focused on. But I love that Me Too movement. I was, supported it, but it really, for me personally, I didn't see where it helped our cause at all, to be honest.
Got you. A lot of people, when things happen like this, I mean, you see it on social media. And again, until you're in that situation, you just don't know, oh, I'd kill someone, I'd do this, I'd do that. But Mark Arthur C. Phillips asks an interesting question. He says, Mrs. Debi, how did you deal with the various feelings and emotions after you discovered your children were attacked?
There's a lot of emotions. First of all, shock. How did I not know this? Was there something I could have done to prevent this? There's this guilt. Why didn't I see it? How could this happen under my watch as their mother? There was anger. Why are the people not reacting the way they should? I didn't get support from everybody, I can tell you that. That wouldn't happen today because of education, I believe that. And I'm not pointing fingers, but people weren't reacting responsibly. I was actually talked out of prosecuting the person because they honestly thought it would be hard on my kids. No, my children were going to go on that stand, and I was going to make sure in my power, especially because he admitted it, and then he changed his plea to not guilty. It looked like my kids would have to testify. In the end, he changed his plea back to guilty, so they didn't have to go on a witness stand. But my kids were going to go on that witness stand. And I wanted to see that courtroom. And so there was a lot of, and the courtroom before we thought they were going to have to go on the stand. I wanted my children to see what a courtroom looked like. That, that didn't happen years ago. Now it has. We have an amazing witness protection team and that do a great job at the Department of Public Prosecution. But a lot of things weren't happening back in 2004 and 5. So I was angry. But I was also passionate that none of this is right, but we got to get it right. So we got it right by educating. Now 14,000 people have the skills and the tools to prevent child sexual abuse. Organizations are doing the right thing. They're implementing policies. They're doing everything they can to reduce risk. Our schools, our public schools, our Department of Health, our private schools, many youth camps and clubs are doing it. They're getting educated. They're implementing policies that will protect kids, protect the staff that work with their kids. They don't want to put their staff in isolated one-on-one situations. So, they're coming into our room and you will see, and they're doing it every 3 years. The youth serving organizations, a lot of them, depend on the leader of these organizations, will mandate that the people that work with their children will come into a room every 3 years to be reminded, just like CPR. Firemen have to do CPR every 2 years. We recommend SCARs every 3 years. We don't want people to forget this, Jamal, because sexual abuse has not been eradicated. So we want people working with kids to continue to do this. But we also want to get parents in the room to do the training too, because these are their little treasures and they want to do everything they can to make sure they're safe.
And that leads me, well, I'll go to the audience real quickly because it kind of ties in with my next question. But Charles A. Chefs II is asking, how do we make it mandatory for there to be background checks when all adults who are part of an organization with children? And my ties into my last question, which was, are there any laws that could help better protect our children that we should be considering?
Yeah, I think this is a policy within youth serving organizations. And it really depends, like I said, on the leader of that organization who will take child protection seriously. I honestly don't think there's a law that requires every single youth serving organization, which is whether that is I know with the Department of Education, it's a policy. I know with Warwick Academy, Summersfield Academy, BHS, the private schools, Bermuda Institute. I know that that's a policy and I'm assuming they're collecting those certificates and keeping records of who's been certified every 3 years. SCARS certainly has a record of everyone who's been SCARS certified. We can unequivocally tell you, 14,000 names in a database of who's been SCARS certified, but it's up to the youth serving organizations to make that a policy. I would like to see it a law, homeschools, everybody who works with kids. Any organization should be mandated to do prevention education. I'm not saying Darkness to Light Stewards of Children is the only one out there. I know a lot of organizations do other ones, and hopefully they will change attitudes and behaviors. Hopefully those other prevention educational tools will dictate policies that they can put in. But I would say to any organization who's going to open their doors to children, go to the SCARS page, scarsbermuda.com website, go to the page that says resources, the title that says resources, and arrow down to resources for youth serving organizations. SCARS has a whole page on sample policies that you can use, sample language that you can use before you even hire somebody or have a volunteer work at your organization with children. There is language that you can put on any type of form that wants to be sure that these people have never been accused or convicted of a crime against children. You don't want them working at your organization. because you want to make sure the children in your organization are safe, and you want to make sure the adults in your organization know what to do to reduce risk, not to put themselves in an isolated one-on-one, and how to recognize signs. The most important thing, Jamel, is that we intervene early, because if trauma can be intervened early, we can start getting help for that child. But if you've got somebody who's had 30 years of trauma, and because we weren't recognizing these signs years ago, that's hard to, I mean, it's possible, but it takes time for an adult who experienced childhood trauma, to receive that healing that they so need from the trauma they experienced when they should not have experienced. Children were not brought into this world to be abused. They were brought into this world to be protected, nurtured, loved, cared for. And, I know parents are busy and they have a lot of, they're juggling so much. But, parents, you say to the people who are watching your children, don't you ever let me find out you've done anything to make my child feel uncomfortable. We have every right to say that. I am watching, and my child's safety and happiness is the most important thing to me.
Indeed. Debbie, this is great. We'll be, just the audience, this segment is brought to you by the QBE Foundation. We're grateful. We're going to be doing this every other month with SCARS, but we'll actually be doing it again in April as well, because April is it, go ahead.
National Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Yeah.
And please, what can I say, Jamel? Look out for we're going to be doing 30 resources for 30 days. A resource a day will keep a child molester away. That's the name of what we're going to be, of these resources that we're going to be doing on social media. So keep an eye out with some great resources for our parents and guardians as it comes to child sexual abuse. And of course, we'll be on here. We'll be on your show in April. We'll have our radio show next Wednesday. So we have things going. We're going to be collaborating with the Coalition for the Protection of Children with a campaign because we educate adults in our community on how to prevent sexual abuse. The Coalition for the Protection of Children, they educate the children on what they need to keep them safe. So it's a 360 approach.
That is good to know. So for the audience, if anyone wants to learn more, engage, maybe become SCARS trained and certified, what should they do?
They should go to our website, scarsbermuda.com. They should go to the tab that says Get Trained and click on the red box there and sign up for a 3-hour training. We offer morning, evening, afternoons, weekends. Pick a date that works for them and sign up through the website. If they want to do a private session, there's a box there for that. They have to have 20 participants, but right through our website, scarsbermuda.com, sign up for a training. We have approximately 53,000 adults in this community. We've trained 14. We have a long way to go.
Yeah. Debbie, thank you so much. And as Charles says, thank you to the QBE Foundation for this important conversation. We'll be having these conversations on a regular basis as much as possible to ensure that our community knows the work that each of us can and needs to do to protect our children. Debbie, thank you. We will see you very soon. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jamel.
All righty. Debi Ray-Rivers, folks, please do us a favor. Whatever platform you're on, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, Instagram, make sure you give us a like, love, follow, share this conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Make sure everyone you know has access to these important community conversations. We're going to take our final break. We'll be back in 1 minute, 55 seconds with the Daily Play and my final thoughts. Stick with us.
Looking for the best care for your pets? Novazok Feed and Supply has everything you need, from top quality foods to toys and supplies. We've got it all. Join our frequent buyer program and earn rewards every time you shop. Plus, we've been awarded the Clever Customer Initiative program for helping you save more. And don't forget, we open an hour early on Saturdays so you can get a head start on your pet care. Visit us today or shop online for easy pickup or delivery. Your pets will thank you.
Join us as we celebrate 5 years and 1,000 plus episodes of community conversations on Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. The Daily Hour Gala takes place on April 26th at LF Wade International Airport. For more information and advance tickets, please send an email to admin@bermudacommunications.com. We look forward to celebrating all that's great about our community with all of you.
Did you know 3 out of 4 people say that they have a good understanding of life insurance? But do they really? When asked how much the yearly cost would be for a 20-year, $250,000 level term life insurance policy for a healthy 30-year-old, 80% overestimated the cost by 5 times the amount. Ready for this? The true cost for that policy is about $220 a year. That's as little as 66 cents a day, or $20 a month. So let's put this into perspective. Compared to other monthly costs, isn't getting life insurance a no-brainer? If you can trim back on some of these expenses just a little bit, it will allow you to dedicate the savings toward an affordable life insurance policy. Contact one of our life insurance agents today to find the right policy for you.
All right, welcome back. Thanks again to Debi Ray-Rivers from SCARS and the QBE Foundation for ensuring that we can have these conversations with you on a regular basis. Thanks again to the BAC group of companies, Medical House and Lindos, for ensuring that we can have the Daily Hour happening to offer this platform to have such conversations. And thank you to all of you. If you haven't already, make sure you give us a like, love, follow, share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. It's the Daily Hour. I'm Jamel Hartman, and it's time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. All right, audience, it's music today. Are you ready? Here we go. All right. What song, do these lyrics belong to? Quote, there are ways to get there if you care enough for the living. Make a little space, make a better place. End quote. I think Stacey Ann Brown, she got it. No one else got that? Yeah. No, not We Are the World. It's Heal the World by Michael Jackson. Yes, Polly Rich and Stacey Ann Brown. Not We Are the World. Heal the World by Michael Jackson, Jolie. Yes, yes, yes. Heal the world. Heal the world. There are ways to get there. If you care enough for the living, make a little space, make a better place, heal the world. Yes. It is Heal the World. Yeah, I like that song. Don't you love that song? I want to wrap it up, though. I want to say regarding the conversation about taking a collective stand. I understand that we live in a time where people have so much to lose, they believe. But even if we don't fight and collectively take a stand, those things we have to lose can be taken away. And I think that's what I want people to understand. There's a risk either way. You risk losing it if you don't do anything, and you risk losing it if you do anything. I'll give you an example. There was a man who worked at an organization who spoke out, and the organization found a way to let him go. And when he was let go, very few people stood with him because they didn't want to ruin their reputation. They needed their job because they had a mortgage to pay. Well, since that time, 10 of those people who refused to stand with that man met the same fate. The lesson in that, if you don't stand together when you see wrong, there's going to be no one to stand with you when you need them. The risk is not one way or the other. There's risk in both. In both not doing anything and choosing to do something. As far as the conversation with Debi Ray-Rivers from SCARS, I'm going to quote WKD Lama here. The community needs SCARS. Thank you for your service. Look, that conversation is not easy to have. It's not. And the thought of someone taking advantage of a vulnerable child should bother us all. So my hope is that for those who do have young children in their lives, talk to them often. Ask them questions. And I think someone said earlier, make yourself approachable to children where they feel like they can have these conversations with you about anything. That's how we get through this together. All right. Time for daily inspiration. All right, let's pick out a quote. I'm just going to go to a page for you and we're going to see. All right. Well, this is what it landed on. And this is from Jesse Jackson, a civil rights leader and a one-time presidential candidate. And the quote goes like this, very short and to the point. Quote, we must turn to each other and not on each other. How fitting that it landed on that quote based on today's conversation. Folks, do us a favor. If you haven't already, make sure you purchase your tickets soon. The price will increase as of April 1st. So get your tickets to the gala. It's going to be a night of celebration. We are going to be having fun as we honor some of our community partners, and we honor someone who has made great contributions to the media space in Bermuda in Glen Blakeney. Don't forget to subscribe on our website, follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring that we can do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. I'm Jamal Hartman. Please do make it a great and a safe day. We are out. Peace.